Gary, there's another one that has come out. It's called The Jesus Dynasty by James Tabor. This is a fellow, it's an archaeologist, University of North Carolina, works with Bart Ehrman there, and the fact is he's got a very interesting book about Jesus and the Jesus Dynasty. Gary, tell us about this.
Well, unlike some of the other things that are coming out right now, James Tabor is a scholar. He's a University of Chicago grad, department head at UNC Charlotte. And this book is an interesting mixture of archaeology, exegetical work, some sociological distinctions, traveling here and there, putting pieces together, and almost like a sleuth, you know, you're going to be kind of taken through this book to different settings. I think some of the major claims in this book that are going to hit the TV and radio waves are that, first of all, he is going to separate the early Christian tradition from a James and Mary, basically family of Jesus tradition that goes this way. And then later, the other divergence is Paul. Now, Paul writes so many things in the New Testament, is so influential and makes his way around so much of the Mediterranean world. He actually becomes the more influential of the two, and Paul's tradition kind of slams the door on the James, Mary, Jesus family tradition.
Yeah, in Jesus Dynasty, the fact is that he didn't say that he was God. You want to erect this dynasty, and he passes the baton to James.
Right. It's almost a genetic dynasty, hence the title of the book.
Now, he's sure that Jesus died.
Absolutely.
So he contradicts some of the other books we're going to talk about, but he's sure that Jesus died.
Right.
But then he says that the body was moved by, and then he speculates who it was. He says, comes back to the mother of Jesus.
Mary and some of the other ladies in particular moved the body. And what gets them past Holy Saturday, so to speak, this day of despair and despondency, and we thought he was the one who would save us from the Romans kind of view, is this rah, rah, rally the troops, and the bloodline that he passes on. And then on the other side, here comes Paul later, and he wants to divinize Jesus. And so you have two tracks, Paul, the culprit, the pure tradition of Jesus' family, and the corrupt tradition of Paul. Another one of the key themes in that book is that possibly, and he's careful to say could be, but he spends so much time on it, you get the idea, he thinks this, that Jesus has a father, and it's not Joseph. It's a man named Pantera, who is a Roman soldier and an acquaintance of Mary. Who knows? Was this a rape? Was it a willing thing? He says, I don't know. We don't know how to put this in there. But he tracks a Pantera, a Roman soldier, up to Germany and says, we have his gravestone here, and kind of tracks him back to Sidon in the Middle East and says, hey, you know what? When Jesus goes to Sidon, and it says that he wanted to be quiet about this, guess what? Maybe he was going to see his father. So this whole father tradition, the Pantera thing, which, by the way, seems to me a very tenuous mixture of archaeological, here's a tomb with words, could be this, could be that, could be this city, and then it almost becomes, he doesn't say this, but it almost becomes a could be, later it becomes a, well, it sort of is, not quite, but sort of, but you're left with this, Jesus' father's name's Pantera, and when he visits Sidon, he's going to see his father. You know, so it's this kind of secret theme.
Let's talk about Jesus' death and his resurrection. What's the evidence from the traditional view that basically is going against this?
I think the most troubling thing about the death of Jesus in the Tabor book, now you said he's very clear that Jesus died on the cross and death by crucifixion. You don't get away from this, and we're sure. And he's right in mainline theology with that kind of conclusion. Virtually no one raises questions about that today. But his point, he takes a theme that was almost never voiced in 200 years of theology. And the idea is the pre-crucifixion Jesus has such an exciting, magnetic personality and is so good at rallying the troops. And then, of course, what he adds is he passes the baton. And so that when he dies, throws himself on the wheel, so to speak, in Schweitzerian fashion, reviving that theme of Schweitzer, to whom I believe the book is dedicated, to the memory of Albert Schweitzer. As he throws himself on this wheel, almost as if to force God's hand to bring in the kingdom, not in a political sense, but in a religious sense, and thereby overthrowing the Romans. It's an alluring kind of tale until you find out that somehow You need to get these guys past some pretty heavy despair, depression, despondency on what's called Holy Saturday, because uh, if he's their best friend, they've been following him for years. He's the one indeed who they kind of secretly hope is going to overthrow the Romans and put them on the right and left side in key positions. And then in the Gospels, he says several times, "I'm going to die," and they're like, "Yeah, right, right. You're going to die. We're here. You know, we're your bodyguards." And all of a sudden, he does die. What's this for me and my family and my kids and the kingdom and the psychologically? I mean, leave out the Gospels if you want to. Psychologically, you can't explain this without kind of hitting rock bottom. And Mary, who moves the body, is going to rally the troops. She's the one who knows where the body is, but she's going to rally the troops. If you want a technical footnote here, Rudolf Pesch made a thesis like this in the early 70s, and he said the pre-crucifixion Jesus gives us enough impetus to explain the history of the church, and he was jumped on. It's a huge discussion in the German literature, and Stuhlmacher and Hengel and some really big names jump all over him, and Pesch sort of repents and changes his theory and says, "You guys are right. You cannot have the church without a resurrection," and he postulates appearances. I think that's what's missing in the Tabor thesis. Now, I should add, he does postulate Paul's spiritual appearance, but Paul's like the guy who comes lately and who confuses Christianity.
All right, we're gonna hit that a little bit more. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're gonna keep talking about Da Vinci Code is coming. We want to comment on a few things there. But we also have Michael Bajan's book, The Jesus Papers, and you were in that special, Craig, and we'll talk about that. We also have Bart Ehrman's book, Misquoting Jesus, which attacks the traditional view of the Bible in terms of inspiration and inerrancy from a textual critic's point of view. You're the expert on that, so we're going to take a look at that in a moment. Stick with us. We'll be right back.